Hi everyone! Today's topic of lecture is influence of physical activity on various body systems, as well as the role of physical exercises. During this time we will consider the main benefits that we can derive from the physical activity. Also we will consider more accurately on the processes and mechanisms that are triggered when we are physically active. Of course, all the scientific data will presented with references, so if you will be interested, so you can find more material if you, on your demand, or if you want. So let's start. And the first issue that is quite important, and the first that comes up when we think about physical exercises and physical activity, of course, it's how our heart responds to the workload. So consequently, the influence of physical activity on the heart is the one of the most important topics. It's studied not only in physical education program, but also in physiology, anatomy, and other subjects that are compulsory for study, for example at the medical universities. Regular exercise is an important way to lower risk of heart disease. Exercising for 30 minutes or more on most days can help lose weight, improve cholesterol, and even lower blood pressure by as many as 5 to 7 points. A sedentary lifestyle, where job or leisure activities involve little or no physical activity at all, doubles risk of dying from heart disease. This is similar to the increased risk you had if you smoked, had high cholesterol, or had high blood pressure. This is a good example. We have different factors, negative factors mostly, that can lead to some very serious and deadly diseases. For example, one of them is a heart disease. But if little or no physical activity is present, this is also a negative factor for us. And as I read previously, it is almost the same negative factor, the same important factor that, for example, if we smoke or we have a extremely high cholesterol level or very high blood pressure. It's very close and quite harmful factor. So their conclusion is simple. Applying physical exercises on a regular basis, on an everyday basis, we can significantly normalize, for example, high blood pressure or cholesterol level. Also, physical activity improve our heart muscle and other parameters that are outcomes of cardiovascular system functioning. Just as exercise strengthens our muscles in our body, it helps actually our heart muscle become more efficient and better able to pump blood throughout our body. This means that the heart pushes out more blood with each beat, allowing it to beat slower and keep blood pressure under control. So it is always the same picture. When we are physically active, by using our muscles, skeletal muscles, our myocard or cardiac muscle is involved in this process too. always. So by designing training session, by combining different exercises and playing with intensity and volume in order to adjust an optimal workload, we can bring a purpose in our physical activity. For example, we want to increase our stamina or endurance. By this conditioning, we can mean cardiovascular system functioning or heart cardiac muscle training. It's very linked. There is a tight correlation between endurance and the state of heart or cardiovascular system. When we exercise regularly, our body tissue, including the heart, does a better job of pulling oxygen from our blood. This allows our heart to work better under stress and keeps us from getting winded during high-intensity activities. This is another very important issue concerning cardiovascular system functioning, namely gas transportation through our cells, through our tissues and organs. By gas transportation and exchange, we mean, of course, oxygen and CO2. Oxygen is an essential element that is necessary for metabolic reactions in our organisms, and the better job of pulling oxygen from our blood to our tissues, to our cells, is performed, the better we feel, the better we can perform activities, not only physical activities but also some intellectual activities, mental abilities, and so on. It's very important. Actually, our immune system, our attitude, our mood, everything is connected with oxygen utilization. And by enhancing heart functioning, cardiovascular system work, we can directly enhance oxygen utilization of our body. Another influence is the influence of physical activity on cardiovascular system, as well as effect on heart muscle. Exercising and physical activity also allows better blood flow in the small blood vessels around the heart. There is also evidence that exercise helps our body make more branches and connections between these blood vessels, so there are other roads for our blood to travel if the usual path is blocked by narrow arteries or fatty deposits. Exercise also increases levels of cholesterol, which is good cholesterol that lowers heart disease risk by flushing the artery, clogging LDL, or in other words, bad cholesterol, out of our system. Along with lowering the risk for heart disease, exercise can lead to keep our weight down, also to improve our mood or attitude, very important issue, and it connected not only with endorphin releasing in our organism, but some are more complicated processes and mechanisms. We will discuss it a little bit later. Also, exercising facilitates to lower risk for some types of cancer, improves balance, that means it develops coordinative capacities, reducing risk of osteoporosis by increasing bone mass. Another issue that we will come a little bit later. Also, physical exercising gives us more energy. It's connected with functional system development, improvement, because when we have a training, endurance training, we actually not only make our cardiovascular system and heart work more efficiently, but also we make energy resources deposition in our cells, for example in muscles. Also, regular exercise helps to sleep better. As it was presented, there are a lot of benefits that we can attain if we are physically active every day. And for now, let's go a little bit further from cardiovascular system and heart training, namely to the influence of physical activity of the cellular or immune system. And the next important influence that we will consider is the effect that physical activity brings to our brain structure, our cognitive functions. The influence of physical activity on mental well-being. Sufficient evidence now exists for the effectiveness of exercise in the treatment of clinical depression. Additionally, exercise has a moderate reducing effect on state and trait anxiety and can improve physical self-perceptions and in some cases global self-esteem. Very often, such kinds of physical activity as walking, jogging, or running, swimming, bicycling, cross-country skiing, well known how they bring peace and relief from anxiety and all these kinds of physical activities actually induce our organism to produce endorphins, that substances that make us feel glad or happy. Self-esteem also is based on how we are feeling physically ourselves. If we are in good fit, if we have a good stamina, good preparation, physical preparation, of course our self-confidence and self-esteem will be quite high enough to perform different activities every day. Also, there is now good evidence that aerobic and resistance exercise enhances mood states, and weaker evidence that exercise can improve cognitive function. Aerobic exercise is named in this way because it allows us to utilize oxygen, and as you already know, brain structures or neural system use oxygen and glucose to perform their function. So oxygen is the vital substance, vital element to perform functioning well. And this is not occasionally that physical working capacity is very linked and has a tight correlation with the intellectual or mental capacity or ability. That means that if you are physically active or you have aerobic exercising twice or 3 times a week, that means that your metabolic reaction processes in organism is quite high, and oxygen utilization is also high enough to maintain cognitive functioning on the high level too. And it's not occasionally also that worker who try to maintain healthy lifestyle will have a much more better health status, but also could work much more efficient than, for example, worker with sedentary lifestyle or with some habits like smoking. Also, physical activity facilitates solving some intellectual tasks or assignments because oxygenation process or oxygen utilization by the cells of our organism, and particularly by neural system, we can provide our organism with necessary conditions in which the mental processes, the cognitive processes are intensified. Also, physical activity provides us with psychological relief. Imagine if you have quite a stressful day at the university or at the working place. So after your main activity, you can perform walking or jogging or swimming, bicycling, for example, and this will allow you not only training of your pulmonary system, cardiovascular system, but also will facilitate your psychological relief, bring calm and peace. So it also indirectly will facilitate for your recovery. Mental well-being very tight correlated with cognition and other brain functions. Physical activity enhances cognitive and brain function and protects against the development of neurodegenerative diseases. Applying physical activity, regular, systematic, on everyday basis, we lay foundation for not only our health and by protection of cardiovascular system and others, but also it will protect our central neural system from some age-related neurodegenerative diseases. This is also very important. And by choice of the exercises, we should be focusing more on some kinds of aerobic kinds of activities, and it will also be useful if we will consider the some minor variation. For example, swimming we can prefer if we have some knee problems and our legs joints problems. Cross-country skiing could be also a good alternative for running, for example in wintertime, but also cross-country skiing also much more moderate exercise if we are looking for some alternative to protect our joints, for example knee joints. Scandinavian of walking with sticks also A good example of moderate aerobic activity where some harmful interaction of feet with the heart trail could be changed with more mild and moderate impact by using sticks. So very often we can observe how elder people are exercising 20, 30, maybe even more time in order to achieve and maintain a particular training effect. But using sticks and this kind of walking, Scandinavian walking, allow them to avoid some harmful influence. For example, in jogging or running, people sometimes can meet. After we considered influence of physical activity on cognition and brain function, and also on mental well-being, let's go a little bit further and look at the influence of physical exercise on the regulation of bone density. The results of studies indicate that stress magnitudes or joint forces have a greater influence on bone mass than the number of loading cycles. So research that presented on the slide with reference demonstrates that by carefully considering the magnitudes of imposed skeletal forces and the number of loading cycles, it may be possible to design exercise programs to achieve predictable changes in bone mass. So this in research has shown that applying different exercises when skeletal forces are provoking adaptation in bone tissue is actually rewarding for to make bones much more stiff and much more protected from breaking and some other degenerative processes. And this is especially important for people who are aging, for elder people. And regular exercising, physical activity such as Scandinavian walking or swimming or bicycling, quite helpful in regulation of bone density. Bone density is consisted of the process of mineralization. Bone tissue as well as other tissues of our organism constantly changing. It's breakdown and it is build up of new cells formations, and this balance with the age could be displaced in the way of much more breakdown, and this situation should be facilitated by optimized training sessions. So this knowledge or this experience could be quite helpful for any athlete, any person who try to use physical activity as a factor that provide him or her with additional tool to maintain a healthy lifestyle, to stay healthy as long as possible. But sometimes knowledge is not sufficient, not enough, or lack of experience do not allow us to implement these techniques. In this case, we can address our demand for specialists in physical education, physical activity, or in some kinds of sport to or a physician actually, some doctors can help and give us consultation, or even make a training design that we should follow to achieve a particular goal. But regulation of bone density is one of the most important and critical factor or influence on physical activity that we should pay attention to. And as I said before, especially it's important for old people. Weightlifting or bodybuilding or powerlifting, one of the examples of different kinds of sport that can be fruitful in the case of regulation of bone density. By using and working with some additional weights, sometimes with some very heavy stuff, we trigger adaptation not only skeletal muscle tissue but also ligaments and of course bones. So strength training is rewarding for bone density mineralization. This is an important issue, and some kinds of strength training exercises, such as for example push-ups or chin-ups or squats, maybe with some additional weights attached to a body, can be used for quite a long period of time, almost all lifelong, and this simple strength training exercises can be added to a training set. So all this design depends on particular interest, individual interest of trainee. This lecture consists of 45 minutes of material presentation. So for now I would like to summarize all this brief information that I introduced for you. I suppose that you were familiar with some material before, but even if it was like this, repetition is also rewarding, for not only for memorizing but also to look at the phenomena or the facts from a different angle, different point of view. So let's start summarizing, and after that we will finish the lecture with some organizational questions and discussions. So influence of physical activity on various body systems. Of course, during this lecture we went through just small pieces of information in order to make an image of this influence. If you are interested in some particular topics, of course you can write to me and in Moodle or on YouTube, and I will give you or references or some additional reading materials. Of course, for now, as we have a distant electronic version of learning, we miss some face-to-face interaction, and it's quite difficult sometimes to motivate yourself to get to know more, to learn more, to go a little bit farther than necessary and to get more information, to get knowledge, experience, and so on. But I hope that this brief information that I introduced for you in these slides will be helpful for you to if you are willing to know more. So we started with influence of physical activity on heart. Of course, all we do, all we make, all efforts that we are undertaking is reflected by our heart. Heart rate increase all the time, and not only when we are running, swimming, and so on, but also if we are solving some mental or intellectual cognitive tasks or assignments, our heart rate will increase. And this is because the heart pumps blood in order to utilize oxygen, to provide with oxygen and nutrients our cells. And it could be muscle tissue cells, or it could be central neural system cells, or some brain structures. All requires energy, all requires substances like oxygen to utilize. And healthy heart, efficient heart will manage these processes much more easier and efficient than, for example, when we are most of the time physically inactive or sedentary lifestyle dominates in our everyday routine. By physical activity, I try to not to focus on sport activity. As you paid attention, I hope and suppose I used the term sport just a few times, not because I try to build a border between physical activity and sport, but I consider physical activity as more a general phenomena that all of us, it doesn't matter of what knowledge and experience we have, but physical activity, we meet it and make it every day. And the point is, sometimes it's if the level of physical activity on everyday basis is enough, sometimes it's too much, but very often it's not enough. And with low level of physical activity, even if we are still young, we lay foundation for some degenerative processes, unfortunately. As a feedback, you will be asked to make a control test, and some questions will be devoted to how heart responds or cardiovascular system responds to a physical activity. What benefits, for example, can bring to our body physical activity. This slide information could be used by you to make some notes, or just to read it and try to memorize it. And very helpful, for example, for me, is to make some associations. So imagine how it works, imagine all these processes that described on the slides, and these associations very easy to remember and for a long time. Also, we discussed cardiovascular system, how it adjusts and adapts to regular physical activity. We considered also cholesterol level, and found out that cholesterol could have two variants: good cholesterol, HDL, and bad cholesterol, LDL. So cholesterol usually associated with some vessels problems. So blood couldn't be transported through arteries or other vessels because cholesterols make it much more narrow. And regular physical activity could facilitate better blood transportation through cardiovascular system. This is one of the most important health issues for older people. Also, you can see on this slide other benefits that regular exercise can bring to our organisms, such as improving our mood, lower risk of sometimes of cancer, and so on. Also, we considered influence of physical activity on the cellular immune system. Very important issues, because the lesser we are ill or sick, the much more efficient we are. Are we students or are we workers? If we are healthy, if we missed just a few days during a year because we are sick, so we can bring to our professional life much more benefits. This is important, not only from health status point of view, but also from economic point of view too. So if we are healthier, we try to maintain our immune system on a good level. So we maintain physical activity very regular, every day, and we try to avoid some stressful situations. We try to manage nutrition that is much more optimal and suitable for our organism's demands. So this all this will enhance quality of life overall. Sometimes if we travel a lot, or if we change the geographic places, in case if we study abroad, for example, so the immune system, one of the most important systems in this particular case, because it try to support our health and provide our health in very stressful situation. For example, if we were born in a comfortable climate, warm, with many sunny days during the year, and air has a more percentage of oxygen, and the temperature during the year is quite of moderate, so it could be very stressful if we travel to, for example, north, and we meet lack of sun, lack of oxygen in the breathing air. We are surrounded by windy and cold weather, so all this can provoke some sick states of our organism. And if we have a good and high enough immune system that responds to these stress factors, so we can maintain our health on a particular level that will allow us to adjust for new environment, and to work or to study much more efficient, and enjoy all the situation, enjoy um, all every day if we are healthy, because we have a good immune system that responds to all the factors that try to um, make it worse. Now let's summarize information about central neural system, cognition and brain function. So physical activity provides us and maintains our cognitive functioning, and it actually allow us to avoid some neurodegenerating diseases. Also, physical activity facilitates psychological relief from some stress, and maintain mental well-being, so we can have a good self-esteem, be self-confident. We can avoid some anxiety feelings, and sometimes physical activity can help us with depression. So this is a very important aspect too. And here I didn't mention that also participation, for example, in team sports like a volleyball, basketball, or others, bring joy and socialization with teammates. So we can conversate, we can socialize, be social, and have a much more fun time when we have a training sessions. It also make us actually feel sometimes happy additionally. Why not? So physical exercises is one of the wonderful tools in pursuing good state of mood. Now let's summarize information about central neural system, cognition and brain function. So physical activity provides us and maintains our cognitive functioning, and it actually allow us to avoid some neurodegenerating diseases. Also, physical activity facilitates psychological relief from some stress, and maintain mental well-being, so we can have a good self-esteem, be self-confident. We can avoid some anxiety feelings, and sometimes physical activity can help us with depression. So this is a very important aspect too. And here I didn't mention that also participation, for example, in team sports like a volleyball, basketball, or others, bring joy and socialization with teammates. So we can conversate, we can socialize, be social, and have a much more fun time when we have a training sessions. It also make us actually feel sometimes happy additionally. Why not? So physical exercises is one of the wonderful tools in pursuing good state of mood.